Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is bouncing from my exact level of support in the short term, but we still have some bearish price targets to watch out for in this Bitcoin liquidation heat map, while Ethereum has now just technically confirmed a new warning signal that we need to pay attention to, alongside the price of Chainlink just now confirming the same warning signal. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But of course, on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have a massive bearish divergence to watch out for, which is technically confirmed, with higher highs confirmed in the price of Bitcoin in the candle closes and lower highs confirmed in the weekly Bitcoin RSI, which basically means within the next few months or so, not a short-term signal, but in the next few months or so, it's likely we'll see a larger slowdown in the price of Bitcoin, not necessarily significant bullish momentum. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we're still seeing a lack of momentum to really either direction, at least relative to the 3-day time frame. Once again, we can see short-term pumps and short-term dumps on smaller time frames, and on the smaller time frames, these moves look like much larger moves in the price of Bitcoin. But here on the 3-day time frame, relative to this 3-day time frame right here, once again, at least for now, we are lacking momentum, kind of just bouncing around a relatively sideways as we could see, and not really seeing massive high momentum moves to either direction. And so honestly, no matter what happens in the shorter term on the smaller time frames, whether we see a bit more of a pullback or a bit more of a bounce, either way, honestly, don't expect a massive crash right now to much lower prices, like all the way back down here. And honestly, if we see another all-time high breakout at some point, don't necessarily expect a massive move up towards like 150k, 200k. That is very unlikely going to happen. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, we still have a bearish divergence, which is technically confirmed on the daily time frame between these two highs in the price of Bitcoin and these highs in the RSI. Of course, once again, higher highs in the price and lower highs confirmed in the daily Bitcoin RSI. And so not only is the price of Bitcoin continuing to struggle around this area on the price chart in the lower 120k area, so in between roughly 120k to 123k, give or take, we still have a lot of resistance there. But not only do we have that resistance to watch out for, once again, with this bearish divergence technically confirmed on the daily time frame, as well as that one on the weekly time frame, this is telling us we should not necessarily expect massive bullish momentum, at least not right now. But obviously, we can see little short-term bounces from time to time, just in the immediate short term. I'm not saying no bullish price action, I'm just saying don't expect massive momentum towards the upside into huge new all-time highs is simply what I'm saying right now. Essentially, we're likely going to see a bit more weakness in the price of Bitcoin, at least for the coming days or possibly weeks. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term here on the 8-hour time frame, obviously for the last couple of days, we've already started to play out this short-term bearish divergence between these two highs on the 8-hour time frame. Once again, higher highs in the price of Bitcoin and lower highs confirmed in the 8-hour Bitcoin RSI. And so, like I've been saying over the last couple of days, obviously with these bearish divergences playing out on all of these different time frames here, don't expect massive bullish momentum. It's actually quite likely we could see perhaps a little bit more of a pullback at some point in the coming days or weeks as a likely scenario. But of course, as I always say, also focus on key points of support in the price chart where the price could potentially bounce from. And a level that I've been looking at recently over the last couple of days is this $117,000 level, which so far we're pretty much perfectly bouncing from my exact level of support at around 117,000. And so once again, as I've been saying throughout the video and many times here on the channel, yes, we could see short-term bounces from support. This is very normal to see, which is why I mentioned these support levels as levels to watch out for where we could possibly bounce from. But even if we see a bit of a bounce from support, once again, that does not necessarily mean we're seeing massive high momentum towards the upside, just maybe a bit of a short-term bounce and then possibly a continuation of a bit more weakness in the price of Bitcoin later on. And so overall, that is what I'm expecting in terms of the momentum and what I'm expecting for the price of Bitcoin, and of course the key level of support to watch out for here. But in terms of other levels of support and resistance, if for example we break below 117,000 with candle closes confirming below 117,000, in that situation, we would at least likely see a drop down towards close to 115,000. We may find some short-term support at roughly 115,000 and slightly above 115,000, like 115.2k, for example, acting as a point of support. But below that level, honestly, would likely see a retracement down towards around 112,000 as a very important level of support at around 112,000. But once again, at least for now, the immediate level of support to focus on is that that $117,000 level. And if the price of Bitcoin continues a little bit more of a short-term bounce from this level of support here, we could possibly head up towards close towards around 120,000. And then as we approach 120,000, especially around 119,500, once again, as we get closer towards 120,000, start to expect a lot of resistance around there on the price chart, as we've seen many times in the past at close to 120,000. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, at least as of right now, we're still seeing some short-term liquidity building just below the price of Bitcoin at around 115.3K to 115.6K. So roughly 115,500 as a likely price target, which is sitting right around here. And like I just said earlier, we'll likely find some support close to that level at just above 115,000. Once again, if we first break below 117,000. So that would be the next immediate price target if we break 117,000, simply taking out this area of liquidity. And then of course, if we break below 115,000, the next price target would be this area of liquidity sitting at close towards roughly 112,000. And once again, that's also lining up with a key level of support sitting at about 112,000. And so once again, those are the key levels to watch out for the price of Bitcoin. And those are my expectations in the shorter term and for the next few days or possibly weeks for the price of Bitcoin. And of course, I did mention recently here on the channel, if we break below ideally 117,000, that could be a possible short position opportunity just for a very short-term trade to trade towards these next short-term price targets and then take some quick profits towards those next price targets as a possible trading opportunity. Not financial advice, but considering we're still running into this level of support and currently experiencing a slight bounce from this support, obviously it's not ideal to open a new short position at support. But like I've also been saying recently here on the channel, considering the lack in bullish momentum, considering these bearish divergences, which are technically now active on multiple different timeframes for the price of Bitcoin, I would also not really look at opening a new long position, at least as of right now, because yes, we could see a little short-term bounce from support, but it's unlikely we'll see significant bullish momentum, which means there's not necessarily a massive opportunity right now for a new long position, at least in my opinion, not financial advice. But obviously, as soon as I open a new trade for Bitcoin or any other crypto, I'll let you know about it here on the channel as soon as I do that, completely for free, very transparently here on the channel. And of course, if you want to get set up ready to go to take the next trading opportunity in the price of any crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I've been taking a lot of my crypto trades as of recent over on BTNX. So I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive bonuses over here and also enter into this huge prize pool up to 25,000 USDT in a major prize pool here, simply just by trading crypto using that link. And so once again, if you sign up using the link below this video, just by having trading volume, and also if you're getting some decent percentage returns, or if you're a new user, you can basically be eligible here to potentially win some major prizes here. Once again, up to a 25,000 US dollar prize pool, simply just by trading crypto using that first link below this video. But once again, it's only available using that link. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using that first link below this video to take advantage of these major bonuses here. And of course, in case you're wondering, BTNX is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BTNX as an exchange, there's also PineX as another exchange out there that I also use. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to PineX below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can also claim some major bonuses. Like for example, if you simply just make an account, which is very easy to do, takes about 1 minute, and then complete KYC using that link below this video to PineX, you get a free $50 bonus onto your PineX account. And then if you make some deposits here, if you, for example, deposit $100, you get a $100 bonus. Or if you deposit up to $10,000, you get a $1,000 bonus into your PineX account. But once again, these huge bonuses here are only available if you use the links below this video to make your accounts on these exchanges. So once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out, those first and second link below this video, to take advantage of these major bonuses here on these exchanges. And with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance on the 3-day time frame, And at least for now, obviously, we're still trading below this key area of support in between around 60.5% to 61%. So technically, in terms of the price structure here, overall, the trend, at least for now, on the 3-day Bitcoin dominance price chart is currently bearish, which is at least some good news for altcoins. But obviously, with this short-term little bounce here, just this tiny green candle here, just in the last 1 day or so, while we've formed this short-term green candle in the Bitcoin dominance, while that has happened, of course, we have seen a bit of a dump across a lot of the altcoin market, once again, just in the short term. And of course, if Bitcoin experiences some sort of dump here in the short term, usually that flows over to a lot of altcoins. And so, for example, let's just say if the Bitcoin dominance is dumping, that means a lot of altcoins, especially larger altcoins like Ethereum, might be holding up a bit better than what Bitcoin is doing. But if Bitcoin is still seeing a decent pullback, altcoins still might end up pulling back, maybe just not as much as what Bitcoin is doing if the Bitcoin dominance is bearish. But of course, if the Bitcoin dominance is bullish while Bitcoin is pulling back, then that is very bad for altcoins. So definitely keep an eye on what the Bitcoin dominance is actually doing. And I'll now expect resistance based on this previous area of support flipping into new resistance for the Bitcoin dominance, sitting in between around 60.5% to 61%. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, obviously we're still experiencing a pretty harsh rejection from around the previous all-time high, sitting in between around 4.8k to 4.9k, acting as strong resistance. And so obviously, at least as of right now, continue to expect a lot of resistance around there, around the previous all-time highs, basically just under $5,000, which is basically the area I've been targeting ever since we broke out above roughly 4.1k. I've been saying once we see that breakout above 4.1k, expect to move towards the previous all-time high, and then expect resistance around that all-time high. And based on support right now, I'd now expect a lot of support based on this previous area of resistance flipping to new support if we were to see a bit of a pullback here, sitting in between around 3.9k to 4.1k, likely acting as major support if the price actually reaches those levels. And for as long as the price of ETH is still holding above roughly $4,000 above this area right here, technically speaking, the larger price structure on the larger timeframes is still looking very bullish, at least as of right now. But of course, if we see a major break below 4,000, below 3.9k, especially if we fail to get back above that area, that would potentially be a significant change in the price structure here to the bearish direction. But at least for now, obviously that has not currently happened. We're just seeing a bit of a short-term rejection from this resistance at just under 5,000, at least as of right now. But if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, we technically now have a somewhat short to mid-term bearish divergence now confirmed on the daily Ethereum price chart, because we now have very clear higher highs confirmed in the price, and we also have very clear lower highs now confirmed in place in the daily Ethereum RSI. And the last bearish divergence we saw on the daily Ethereum price chart was right here around the end of July, just this tiny little bearish divergence here, which played out for almost 1 week, close to a week, just under a week of worth of a pullback here. But honestly, the last bearish divergence we saw of a similar size to what we're seeing right now on the daily Ethereum price chart was this one back here, which confirmed roughly around the middle of June, and that resulted in a pullback that lasted for roughly 2 weeks. And so at least based on these previous examples here, and based on the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence, it is quite likely that within the next week to 2 weeks, we could potentially see a little bit more of a pullback as a very likely scenario. Not necessarily a major crash. This does not guarantee a huge crash or anything like that. Essentially, what a bearish divergence means is that we're losing bullish momentum. So technically, we've not confirmed a trend reversal, but the bullish trend is indeed slowing down, at least for the next 1 to 2 weeks is a very likely scenario. Just losing momentum and showing a bit of a weakness in the shorter term is a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at the ETH BTC chart, Ethereum versus Bitcoin on the daily time frame, we can see that right now we've also just confirmed a new bearish divergence on the Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart. And in case you're new to all of this, essentially if this chart is bullish, all you need to know is Ethereum is outperforming whatever Bitcoin is doing. But if this chart is bearish, then Ethereum is underperforming whatever Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin is showing signs of weakness in the shorter term, especially for example, if Bitcoin breaks below this level of support at 117,000, while Ethereum versus Bitcoin, ETH BTC, is looking slightly bearish, once again, that means Ethereum might be doing a little bit worse, at least over the next 1 or 2 weeks, than whatever Bitcoin is doing. And this will especially be the case here if the Bitcoin dominance keeps up a little bit of a short-term bounce. So for example, if the Bitcoin dominance maybe sees a retest of this area in between 60.5% to 61% to maybe flip it into new resistance here. But while we're seeing that test, obviously we're experiencing a short-term bounce here on the 3-day Bitcoin dominance chart. If that plays out while we're seeing a bit of a pullback in ETH BTC, while Bitcoin is still showing signs of weakness in the shorter term, essentially all of that information would point towards a little bit of a pullback for Ethereum against the US dollar, just in the short term once again. And honestly, if the Bitcoin price starts breaking below 117,000 with confirmation, breaking below this key point of support here, continuing this bearish divergence in the shorter term, if this is happening, especially while ETH BTC, Ethereum versus Bitcoin, remains to play out this bearish divergence and continues pulling back here while Bitcoin is pulling back, if this essentially happens for Bitcoin while this is still looking like this for ETH BTC, then I will look to potentially open a new Ethereum shorts position very soon. So I'm letting you know about this in advance before I'm making the trade. Once again, not financial advice. I'm just letting you know what I'll potentially be looking at doing in my trading strategy with my own money. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at Solana on the 2-day time frame, obviously Solana is still struggling around this exact area of resistance based on the 2-day candle closes, still sitting in between around 190 to 200. So obviously continue to expect a lot of resistance in that area. And as for support, expect a lot of support at just above 180, so around 181, 182. And obviously we recently bounced from close towards around 182 to 183 based on this candle right here. And if we break below around 180, the next major support is at around 167. And at least for now, in the immediate short term, the price of Solana is still somewhat lacking momentum to either direction. Obviously, as the price is still running into resistance, but we're still trying to push into that area of resistance. Basically, we're failing to go further towards the upside because of the area of resistance, but we also don't really have major bearish momentum right now, seeing a major crash. So overall, it's likely that the price will continue trying to press against this resistance, but also still finding resistance in this area, just struggling a little bit like this in the shorter term is a very likely scenario for the price of Solana. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, we still have a major bearish divergence to watch out for, with higher highs confirmed in the price and lower highs confirmed in the RSI on the weekly XRP price chart. And of course, the last major bearish divergence we saw like this on the weekly XRP price chart was back here near the end of 2020, entering into early 2021, between these lower highs here in the RSI and higher highs in the price. And of course, what came next was a major pullback in the price over the next few months. And so obviously, this is not a short-term signal telling us what to expect over the next 24 hours, but it is a signal telling us that within the next couple of months or so, it is likely we're going to see either a larger slowdown, so at best, just a bit of a sideways consolidation, but honestly, quite likely a bit more of a pullback within the next couple of months or so is a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at the daily XRP price chart, at least for now, the price of XRP is somewhat within a sideways price range, as we could see in between roughly 290 to 340, but the much larger price structure is still looking very similar on the daily time frame to what we saw near the beginning of this year, around January entering into February. And so just keep that in mind. Once again, we've not really confirmed significant new bullish price structure, at least until we break out back above around $3.40. That would be a major bullish change in the price structure here. But for now, obviously, that has not yet happened. So continue to expect a lot of resistance at around 335 to 340 and major support at around $2.90 to $3. And if we break below 290, expect more support at around 275 and major support in between around 255 to 262. And in the immediate short term, it's very likely that XRP, just for the next 1 or 2 days, will likely just bounce around a little bit sideways like this in the immediate short term, because usually after we see a volatile move in the price, either towards the upside like this or towards the downside like this, like what we saw just the other day, usually at least the next couple of days in the immediate short term, we see some relatively neutral price action, basically the price settling down a little bit after a major volatile move basically completes. And so in other words, I'll not be surprised if we come back tomorrow and the price is still in between roughly $3 to $3.20, somewhere around here on the price chart, still kind of just settling a little bit in the shorter term, but obviously lacking momentum, at least for now, but still within much larger bearish price structure if we're talking about what we could be expecting within the next couple of months. And so those are my expectations in the immediate short term and the larger situation, the key levels to watch out for. And if we're taking a look at Chainlink on the daily time frame, obviously Chainlink pretty much perfectly rejected from my exact area of resistance that I've been warning about since before we even broke out above $20. I've been saying since basically all the way back down here, if we break out above $20 to $21, expect a quick move towards around $24 to $25, and then expect a lot of resistance at roughly $24 to $25 based on this Fibonacci level, which I've not changed for months now on the channel, still sitting at this same level. And obviously we pretty much perfectly rejected from my exact level right here at around $24 to $25, as I've been warning about for weeks, if not months now on the channel. But of course, like I've also been saying here on the channel, once we break out above around $20 to $21, I'd now expect that area to flip into new support. And we have already seen one bounce close to a week ago, just under a week ago here, basically in that retest, flipping previous resistance into new support. So continue to now expect a lot of support in between around $20 to $21. And once again, a lot of resistance at around $24 to $25. And technically, the larger price structure, the much larger or longer term trend for Chainlink is still technically bullish. If we're looking at the highs and the lows, we're still seeing significant higher lows and higher highs. Obviously, we're just seeing a short-term rejection from significant resistance, kind of like what we saw just here or just here, for example. And so honestly, it could be quite likely that maybe over the next few days or so, the price remains within this sideways price range, considering I'd expect strong support in between $20 to $21, which means the price would likely bounce around that area or even just before that area. But once again, still strong resistance at $24 to $25, meaning the price would likely continue to reject from that area, maybe causing the price to remain range bound just for a little while here in the short term. But we also technically now have a bearish divergence now confirmed on the daily Chainlink price chart, because we now have higher highs confirmed in the price, of course, but we now also have lower highs confirmed in place in the daily Chainlink RSI. And so as always, a bearish divergence means we should not be expecting significant bullish momentum as a likely scenario for the next few days or weeks. Is a very likely scenario based on a bearish divergence on the daily time frame. So of course, once again, we could see little short-term bounces from key points of support, for example, but don't necessarily expect a massive bullish continuation of the larger trend, at least not straight away, at least not in the next few days or weeks. There's a very likely scenario based on this bearish divergence now starting to play out, showing some weakness in the price just in the shorter term here. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.